Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel where I talk about movies. And the movie I want to talk about today comes from 1992. It's A Winter's Tale, starring Charlotte Berry and directed by Eric Rohmer. And The Tale of Winter is part of the Tale of Four Seasons that Rohmer made in the 1990s. Criterion released a box set of it a couple of years ago. I didn't buy it. Didn't have a lot of supplements. I've seen the movies many times, and they're playing all four of these movies are playing on the Criterion channel, streaming on the channel, with a couple of the supplements. They didn't include a lot of supplements in that box set. So I do have Tale of Springtime. This is an ancient DVD, and I do have A Summer's Tale, which is probably my favorite of the quartet. There is A Tale of Autumn and, of course, A Tale of Winter. Charlotte Berry plays this hairdresser by the name of Felice. She's sort of an ordinary girl, but she has an extraordinary summer vacation. So even though this is A Tale of Winter, underneath the credits, we see a series of clips of Felice's summer vacation where she has a torrid love affair. We see it on the beach and the boats, in the bedroom. It's a very erotic sequence. Probably the most explicitly carnal depiction of sexual desire as Rohmer has ever made, but it's very crucial because of what is to follow. Now, Charles is the name of her boyfriend. He's a sort of an intern chef. He's about to go off to, after his vacation, he's about to go off to America because he's going to intern. He's trying to find a chef that he can study under and learn. So the final scene of this prologue is at the train station, and Charlotte is nervous. She's excited. She writes down her address, Charles will write. And then we get an intercut 5 years later. So we see Felice working in a hairdresser's salon. She goes home. This is wintertime. This is very drab and dreary looking. This is the suburb of Paris. She goes home where she's living with her mom, and there's a little 5-year-old girl there, and on the little girl's dresser there is a picture of Charles. And there she knows that's her father, but there's no Charles around. and there's been no letter. We learned that a few months after the summer vacation, Felice is filling out a form, and she puts in the wrong address, some older address, puts in the wrong town, wrong suburb, and she realizes at that time that's the address that she had given to Charles, and that's why she has not heard from him. Now, in these intervening 5 years, he's developed relationships with two different men. One is the owner of the salon where she's working. The other is a librarian. He's very intellectual, good-looking. And they both have their strengths and their weaknesses, but they're not Charles. And so neither of them can, she tries, but neither of them really can stand up to this image she has of this sort of mythical, love affair. Even though 5 years have gone by, but then she decides, well, maybe she'll go off with one. Maybe she'll make a decision. She'll go off with one of them, which she does. But then she goes to a church. Now, she's not religious. Her boyfriend, the librarian, is religious, Catholic, and she's gone off with the other boyfriend. And her daughter wants to go into this church to see a nativity. Now, this is a Christmas movie. It's set right before Christmas and then on into the new year. And in that church, even though she's not religious, and in front of the nativity scene, she gets an epiphany, and she realizes that neither of these guys she has to wait for Charles. Charles is the love of her life. So that's the one point which moves her, this sort of epiphany. But then when back in Paris, she goes to see a performance of Shakespeare's A Winter's Tale, and this was the genesis of why the inspiration for Rohmer for making this film. This was actually the first of the four that he worked on. A Tale of Springtime chronologically came out first. And in The Winter's Tale, we see the scene. She's in the theater, and she's visibly moved by the famous scene from Winter's Tale where Hermione, the queen, has her husband, the king, had exiled her in a unjustified, jealous rage. So she's been gone like 20 years. The king thinks she's dead. He commissions. He's now remorseful. He wants a statue. Somebody who remembers Hermione will make a statue of Hermione, and then when the king sees the finished product, that statue comes to life, and Hermione has not been dead after all. And Rohmer had wanted Brialy and Francois Fabian to play, who were stars of from the Six Mortal Tales, to play the king and queen. He couldn't get them. That would have been a very special little scene. But again, Charlotte is convinced that she's on the path, that something good will happen, because she's so moved by this statue coming to life and this epiphany that she had, even though she is not religious. That's the crux of her dilemma, a dilemma that's faced by many Eric Rohmer characters. They're the choice of a spouse, or the choice of somebody who you're going to live with or going to have a long-term relationship with, is a very difficult one. And for Rohmer's characters, and some might find Felice a little bit tough to take because she has such tunnel vision as Charles or nobody, but the actress is very good looking and she's very appealing, and as her librarian boyfriend knows, she has a good deal of a kind of common sense wisdom, and it just instinctively she just feels that it's Charles or nobody, and maybe something will happen. So. As I say, this is part of the Four Seasons. Rohmer was, Tales of Four Seasons, Rohmer was actually in his 80s, I think, when he made these. And you would think they were the works of a young man, because they fit very much into the series that he made in the 1970s, the Six Moral Tales, where it was about a man who had to decide between two different women. And in the 80s, he had the comedies and Proverbs. So I think there was 8 of those. Mostly they were about women in their romantic entanglements and with men, and Rohmer is so good at delineating all this and the psychology of these people, and he picks mostly in the early Moral Tales. He used big time stars, but he didn't use that going forward. There weren't big time stars in most of his films going forward, and he gets such indelible, real. They seem like real people, and that's part of the appeal of Rohmer, is that he's documenting these characters' lives in a way he doesn't judge them, he observes them, and it's very difficult, I think, to describe the appeal of Rohmer, because it's so unassuming. He doesn't involve himself in a lot of the kind of emotional, the way the emotional scenes would be directed in a much more commercial film. And I consulted Roger Ebert, because he gave this film 4 stars in 1992. And part of his review, there's one sentence that kind of describes an Eric Rohmer film, in which he says, "There is a kind of comfort in his films, a gentle lulling through the rhythms of everyday life, and he finds great beauty in ordinary people and locations." And I think that is that's the best description, one sentence description I've ever heard of Rohmer's appeal. His influence, I think, Hong Sang-soo, if you know his films, the South Korean director, they're all of one piece. So when you see a Rohmer film, and you see another, and you see another, it's like you're seeing one continuous film. And Hong Sang-soo's films are sort of like that too, and they're very minimalistic. there's they're not they're never going to be big hits. Now Romer had a formula where he knew he had appeal from the time of My Night at Maud's onward. His appeal was probably strongest in the United States. He had, some of the biggest critics in the United States were champions, and he had an audience, and he knew he would sell so many tickets in the United States, so many tickets in France, so many tickets in the rest of the world. So he would adjust his budget to these to this expectation. So he continued to make a lot of films. So if you like Romer, no matter where you start, if you like him, there's going to be a whole lot of other films. And he made films that were not part of this series, his history series. So again, the reception for A Tale of Winter was very good, and Romer, I think, made movies into the 2000s, and I think I did a review of one of his later films, The Four Adventures of Renette and Maribel, I think was the title of it. But he's one of my favorite directors. And how do you define favorites? How many times do you watch these films and rewatch them? Because Romer is rewatchable. I think only Alfred Hitchcock, maybe, I've seen so many of his movies over and over and over again. And you wouldn't think Romer and Hitchcock are, don't seem compatible, at least on the surface. Romer wrote a book about Hitchcock with Claude Chabrol back in the 1950s, and there is suspense in his films. At least I really enjoy them, and hopefully you will too if you've never seen an Eric Rohmer film. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome.